So we've had some subscribers send us some messages, and there sounds to be like there's a little bit of concern about this. So I figured I'd do a story on it. Of course, I'm not sure what the bigger story is here, that officials finally figured out that Taco Bell gives people some stinky poos, or that Taco Bell in and of itself even serves fresh produce. In reality though, guys, this isn't a Taco Bell story. It's not a restaurant story. This is a story about, once again, how our 72-hour food system has proved to be extraordinarily vulnerable. Right now, thousands of people, I think the numbers I'm hearing are as high as 5,000 people across 34 states are becoming seriously ill. And while most eyes, as of yesterday, are on Taco Bell, the story here actually goes significantly deeper into a supply chain that is so complex, even federal authorities are having a hard time figuring anything out. In Michigan alone, health officials have reported approximately 3,309 cases. They're pretty much ground zero. And I'm talking about cyclosporiosis. That's a tongue twister. Nationally, the CDC has confirmed about 1,645 cases nationwide. Those are laboratory studies. Not every case goes to the laboratory. Some restaurant locations, like Taco Bell, have taken quote unquote precautionary steps, removing certain fresh ingredients from their lineup. Like I said, that's news to me. But as of the latest updates, this is what you guys need to understand, is that no specific farm, no specific source, no specific supplier has actually been confirmed. Taco Bell is just the perfect rumor. And this isn't just about one outbreak. This is about how tracing this type of thing through America's 72-hour food system is proving to be rather impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. And it also tells you a heck of a lot about the hidden journey that your food takes from farm to table before it hits your plate. Cyclosporiosis is actually caused by a really tiny parasite. People who get sick often deal with severe watery diarrhea, often blowouts. This is why the Taco Bell news has been going off the chain. Everybody likes to attribute this stuff to Taco Bell. It comes with intense stomach cramps, nausea, fatigue, and dehydration that can drag on for days, even weeks. To be honest with you, the symptoms sound like a lot of medications on the market. Now, one of the biggest challenges for investigators in trying to pinpoint this is actually timing. Symptoms usually don't even show up until after a week of eating the contaminated food. It's kind of like COVID. COVID symptoms didn't show up until after a week of getting COVID. Makes it harder to track. By then, most people can't think of every salad they ate, every taco they ate, every side dish that they had. That gap makes it harder for anybody to trace it back to where it came from. Now, according to Michigan's health department, they believe that the source it goes back to some sort of produce, fresh lettuce. But officials are still saying, look, there's been no farm, no supplier, no specific type of food that has actually been pinpointed for where this is coming from. In other words, other foods simply can't be ruled out at this point in time. Of course, the CDC, the FDA, they're all working through patient records and flock cameras trying to figure out exactly what happened here. 100% beeswax candles. Guys, if you are somebody who likes burning candles, likes living under natural light, you'll love these candles. They do not pollute the air. They actually purify it. Support this podcast, support Yanasa TV. Check out the links below. Now, there's something to remember in all this. Final produce doesn't get the same final kill step that a lot of other foods get because it's not cooked. It moves through a really long chain. It's harvested on a farm. It's washed and cooled, processed and packed. It's loaded onto trucks, sent to regional warehouses. Only after all that is it finally delivered to restaurants and stores. Food goes a long way before it actually makes it to you. Throughout numerous different steps in this process, products from different farms get mixed with other products from other farms. That mixing creates a giant web of suppliers and distributors. When something goes wrong in that giant web, investigators have to work backwards all the way through the web to try and pinpoint where this thing actually came from. And most of the time they can't find the actual farm, they can only figure out a region of farms where this came from. Now, in most of the cases of this, it does start at the farm level. The contamination often comes from irrigation water, maybe sludge too. And this contamination happens on the farm long before it ever reaches the plant. Not blaming the farmers. My thought tells me this is probably a large industrial farm though. America's produce system has become largely centralized, kind of like the big meat packers. A relatively small number of packers and producers actually move the large majority of the produce that you see on your grocery store shelves. They move it under numerous brand names, but it's still coming from the same facilities, same corporations. Now, a lot of people would argue that this brings some real benefits. It brings, lower costs. It provides year-round availability. It even makes transportation a little more efficient when you transfer it all in bulk. But it also means that if contamination happens early on, contamination on one farm can reach multiple states fairly quickly because it's mixed and matched with all this other produce collected by these processors and distributors, and bam, it's everywhere. 34 states. Now you're probably wondering, if it's hard to track, why is the system built this way? I've always questioned whether or not our food and safety system was actually built for safety, because the answer to that is scale and efficiency. Centralization works for moving a large amount of food at scale and affordably. Centralization works at building profits. Have you guys ever noticed how your mind has been conditioned to accept that everything in a grocery store is safe, but when you go to a farmer's market, it has to be washed extra carefully. You have to be careful of where your meat comes from. How many of you ever, for the first time ever, picked up an egg from your own egg, cracked it into the frying dish, and then wondered if you should eat it afterwards? That's mental conditioning. But as we're learning, this system isn't exactly the safest. It's just efficient. Because the same system that makes all of this more efficient, more affordable, more seasonally friendly for everybody, is the same system that makes it hard to trace, track, and find a problem. If it happened with a local farm at a farmer's market, everybody would know in a weekend. So as this investigation continues, here's what families can do. First of all, do not panic. The vast majority of the produce you eat is safe. If you're concerned about produce, I suggest visiting your local farmer's market. Chances are the farmers in that market are not watering their crops with sludge and bad irrigation, recycled irrigation water. I know Bill Gates was working on some water recycling. Maybe it came off of one of his farms. I don't know. If you're in one of these impacted areas and you're concerned about produce from the store, instead of buying packages of the shredded produce, buy like a whole head of lettuce. Rip off the outside, wash the inside really good. These are just steps that you can take to reduce the chances of getting it. The other thing that you can do is just try and make sure that you're eating produce that you can cook some way. Maybe stay away from fresh salads for a little bit. Fresh fruits, vegetables, all these things are still really important for your diet. It's important to not freak out about it, but take some precautionary steps, wash it. If you can, like I said, go to a local farmer's market where people aren't experimenting with their water. And this, like I said, this investigation is still underway. Officials have not confirmed a source yet. What we're hearing about Taco Bell is voluntary recall of products out of precaution. They're probably not the only ones who have been asked to do so. What amazes me is how many people still eat at Taco Bell. Anyway, guys, just figured I'd give you a little update on that story and provide a little bit of advice on what you can do. This is why the centralized food system and its vulnerabilities are actually not a great thing, if you think about it. And why supporting your local farmer, getting out there and finding local resources for these very basic groceries, this time of year it should be fairly easy for you. But supporting your local farmers, keeping that local source of food strong is essential. See you next time here on Yanasa TV.